Okay, everybody, it's Friday, May 22nd, 2020. This is week 10 of my viral vlog. I thought last week about starting to do them once a month because I realized that the weekly deadline is sometimes a little stressful and hectic to meet. But then I thought, well, I'm doing a lot of edits, and I'll just do some less edits. So today's is going to be a little bit more all in one shot. But today, one of the most exciting things happened ever in the life of TimeCube, I think, which was that it's about the middle way through pigeon mating season. Now, pigeons are very virile and fecund all year long. They're a very romantic species, no matter what time of year it is. But this is sort of pigeon mating season when they get extra much out of their shells and they go out and get crushes on other pigeons and stuff. So anyway, today a neighborhood pigeon landed on the rooftop of the cube's environment out there and was checking him out, and he was showing off and doing his dance and stuff, and I felt bad that that pigeon couldn't visit him, and I wish I had some sort of way to invite his love interest in to see him or whatever. Of course, she might have mites and stuff, and then I'd have to put the dust. They have dust, mite dust and stuff. But anyways, we could do that. I would feel like it was a shame to keep another one in captivity that really doesn't need to be, because the cube kind of he's got his pigeon PTSD, I call it, and he's blind in one eye, and that's part of the reason why I don't just try to rewild him. Of course, he was domesticated in the beginning. He was a stray homing pigeon. He was a homing pigeon that had become knocked off course in the first place, but so he's used to being a domesticated being, but still, it seemed like such a shame that these their star-crossed love story couldn't actualize, and maybe I'll try to figure out a way to somehow make it work. Anyway, it was pretty exciting, and I got a little footage of it, and here you can see the cube's love interest.
Good morning. Hello. There's the cardinal. Hi, Birdie. Would you like to come over?
This week, I have been working really hard on my nonfiction writing and research, and I'm making a slideshow presentation that'll be presented on Zoom. I'm doing a lecture from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Thursday, the 28th, so this coming Thursday, for the Rockland Center for the Arts, about Mary Mulberry Clark, this biography I'm writing. But I got a little sidetracked off of that for some other nonfiction research that was really kind of neat. Somebody asked me if I would write something for this academic journal sort of thing about architecture. And of course, I'm no architect or anything, but I had met this person years ago, I guess, and she had remembered I was talking about this at a party or something. And it's about this place Birdville in Toms River, New Jersey, which is a really neat little. This guy, Albert P. Greim, he built this place. He started working on it in 1915, and it's poured concrete structure, and it's similar to the Henry Mercer Fonthill Castle, if you've ever seen that. But Greim's structure, and he built a couple of these, it's really unlike Mercer, who was brilliant and made some incredible poured concrete stuff that's really beautiful, and that's its whole own history. Mercer was, had some money and had some people working for him and stuff like that. Whereas Greim really did this. Albert Greim really did this. It was like him and one helper, and they built this beautiful little church for birds. And basically, it was an early example of what we'd call a roadside attraction, and when cars were actually just starting to get going and go down the shore. He also was an ordained minister, an Episcopalian minister, and they would perform weddings there. And it was designed for birds to live in. He made artisanal bird houses, these arts and crafts style bird houses. That was his business, a booming business. He sold bird houses to the Emperor of Japan, and Wanamakers and Philly and New York carried them and stuff. And me and Mandy checked out that place and got to go inside of it, which is a very rare treat. We called the construction company, the trash removal business that was using it back in 2011. And so I was lucky to do that, and also I did a bunch of research about Birdville around that time and a little bit later. And then I sort of let that lay fallow because I got interested in the Toynbee tile thing. That was coming out, and then the Herbert Crowley stuff, and now the Mary Mowbray Clark stuff. And somebody asked me about this, and I just thought, oh, this is an opportunity to, resurrect all of my old research and everything about it. So I've been really working on that, and I'm excited about that. And here's a few old postcards. I'll get behind the camera and try to show these off. Of Birdville. That's the interior. You can see the poured concrete sort of stuff and everything, and it says, "House wonderful, abounds in arches, niches, and ornamented with the beautiful Moravian tiles made in Doylestown, PA. A.P. Greim, Tom's River." And then this is Birdville from the exterior. And you can sort of see it's got this beautiful dome and everything. And these are, of course, postcards that Greim made, back in his day. So these are probably from 1918 or something like that. So they're old. And then I have a Birdville. Here you go, Birdville. A Dream Molded in Concrete, Birdville. This is one of the catalogs. Actually, I think this catalog was made after Greim had died in 1930. But there's the archway inside. He had an organ installed. He was a musician and stuff. And then here's this back to nature movement among the birds. That's his craft birdhouses and stuff. So that's a Birdville catalog. The famous Birdville birdhouses. Crescent Company. Crescent Company was his business. He also had a vaudeville theater in Tom's River, which is pretty cool. I found all this history about Albert Greim that when you read about Birdville, there's been a fair number of things that have been written about Birdville, and they're not so bad, but they're all sort of on that like pop cultural side of like, I've never found anything where somebody wrote something about it that did real like serious research about who Albert Greim was and everything like that. As you can imagine, it's really a pretty interesting story. And so it's been neat to write something really that digs into like actually his life story and everything like that. So that's one thing I've been working on this week. I've also been working on some artwork. I haven't been working on my artwork as much as I like to, but got into it a little bit. It's so weird with the camera how this goes the opposite way. But anyways, I started this one, and I'm not that far on it yet, but anyway, it's a painting on paper, which I don't do very often, but I do like messing with the colors. And this is in the early stages, so but I just like putting the colors together. I got some exciting mail this week. Me and Mandy's old friend Broken, and it's funny, every time I mention him on the internet or something, people that remember him from Philly, from back in the old days, are always sort of like, I don't know, I think people think he's dead because he's not on the internet. But he's in a wheelchair as far as I know now, and he's struggling along out in LA. But anyways, and I don't know how well he's doing. He said he sent me $20 for my zine. He always sends me money for my zine, and I'm really not doing my zine now. But he says in here somewhere, he says, here's $20 for your zine. And the envelope wasn't opened or anything, but I opened the little thing and there's nothing in there. So I think he just forgot to put it in. But, anyways though, but he's an artist and he always sends these little drawings, little weird drawings and stuff. And this was his one from this time around. I don't know if you can, oh, see, it's showing, unfortunately, you can't see it that well because you see through the paper. Anyways, so that was an exciting piece of mail. It's always cool to get mail. I also got from Intuit, Center for Outsider Art in Chicago. I gave them some zines on consignment, and I guess they had sold those and before the pandemic thing happened, and I got a check from them, I think yesterday, for stuff I had sold on consignment in the shop, and that was pretty shocking and exciting because I forgot I was like, oh, well, there's no shop anymore. The museums are all closed and everything, but apparently they had, I guess they probably do their accounting quarterly or something like that, and got a surprise check from them, so that was pretty awesome. Sold a print last week. I've been going to the post office every Wednesday, so I have 3 of those prints. Yeah, I think 3 of them left. Not many now. So if you want one of those, let me know. I am gonna keep this vlog short. I only want to do one edit, so I'm gonna put the Cube's love interest in. We'll see Ferdy and stuff before we're done here, but I wanted to when I started the vlog originally. When I started the vlog originally, I wanted to tell stories about things and anecdotes, and it never turned into that so much because I got so into this notion of editing things together. So I would edit together little vignettes. But tonight, me and Mandy plan to go see these horseshoe crabs. It's the horseshoe crab mating time, the cycle, the way the moon is tonight, and we wait to the high tide around 9:30 p.m. down the shore in this spot where there's nobody, no humans, but thousands and thousands of horseshoe crabs wash up and they do their mating ritual. And we plan to go see that. And we're leaving, relatively soon, even though I woke up early to go see the Cube's love interest. And Mandy alerted me to that. And then I couldn't stay awake because I had stayed up so late, and I woke up around 2:30 p.m. Hence me trying to kind of rush my vlog. But I did want to do one. I did decide I'd keep trying to do them. But originally, when I was doing the vlogs, when I had the idea, I wanted to tell stories and anecdotes, and I never got so into it because I thought, oh, what if there's people that are still alive and people that remember stuff that, and their feelings get hurt. And so I did have this idea of telling stories about shows that I had played and musical performances and stuff, and all the wacky things that have happened, involving anything that you can think of. And I just thought to myself, oh, but everybody's got their own version of stories, and a lot of this stuff, it doesn't devolve into really just like trashing anybody, but I mean, a lot of the stuff that makes the stories humorous or colorful is like, somebody did something stupid or, something like that, and I just thought, oh, somebody's gonna come out of the woodwork and, but so I gotta say, I'm gonna tell a couple of these stories, just 2, but I gotta say, preface the whole thing with that, aside from looking back to those days, I mean, I'm talking about, my memories of the shows I'm gonna tell span, I guess, 2001 to 2005, so it's not, depends how old you are. I'm 42, so it doesn't seem that long ago to me, but if you're only 15 years old, I guess maybe that span of time seems monumental, but whatever. Anyway, it's funny how time passes too, because you'll meet people now. I always feel like I meet people that are like I'll tell them an anecdote. Oh, I played this show in 2014, and they're, I was born in 2014, and I'm like, how are you born in 2014 and you're 20 years old? They're like, oh, that was 20 years ago. They're just like, oh my God, time goes by so fast. But so, anyways, all I gotta say is all of these shows and all of these things, with the exception of a few things that were really fucked up, like with the exception of looking back on things where it's like, oh, there was like neo-Nazis or whatever. I mean, fuck those people. You know what I mean? Like, still to this day, I don't have any, sense of forgiveness or whatever for like that type of person or whatever. But I mean, people that didn't show up with a key to let the bands in, and then the bands didn't get to play and got stuck in the rain, or I mean, I don't know, maybe that person's mom died or something that day and they couldn't show up with the key, you know what I mean? So there's all this trickiness of it where it's like, I don't think anybody's really a horrible person or anything like that, and actually none of the stories I'm going to tell even involve anything like that, but I just kind of wanted to say that because I get this feeling there'd be somebody that was like, was one of the people who did the thing that I'm kind of talking about, and they'll just look back on it and think, oh, they don't understand though. Like, I'm just using that as an extreme example. Like, oh, my mom died that day, and that's why I couldn't show up with the key to let the bands in, and I'm telling this story about how negligent they were, and you know what I mean. So, anyway, so I want to tell 2 stories about shows that I played in New York City, and I just gotta say that New York City, in my time, was always kind of the place where if you were a touring musician or something, you would skip it. Or if you were, and still to this day, I feel that way about it. Who knows what it'll be like after coronavirus, because maybe the economics would change, you know what I mean? Like, whatever. But New York City to me has always been the place where it's like, if you're a creative person doing something creative or whatever, that's just a city that like doesn't exist on the map. It's like, just skip over it, because there's no way you're going to play a show in New York and anybody's going to come to it, or if they do, that they're going to watch your performance. And there's no way, if you're an artist, you're going to find some sympathetic, person in New York City. It's just like not even worth trying, to an extent that cannot be overstated. It's like a farce, and that's just like with a lot of these cities like San Francisco and stuff, where it's like at some point they had this creative boom, and then they became so priced out that it was just like there's no possibility for flourishing creative art scene of like an actual organically growing creative arts scene to exist there. It's just impossible. You know what I mean? Like, how could an artist live in New York or have a show in New York or whatever, unless you're famous? You know what I mean? So if you're already some established famous, artist or whatever, then I guess you'd be in New York, or that's where the filmmaking industry is. But you gotta have a foot in the door of something. So there's no possibility for like organic, vibrant art stuff to just happen there. And all the stuff I've always done has been on a shoestring budget, playing shows where, you expect to make maybe $40, and then maybe you sell $20 or $60 worth of records, and that gets you your gas and some food and stuff, and you crash on somebody's floor. I mean, there's nobody's floor to crash on in New York. It's like the whole thing is just like, there's nowhere to stay, there's nobody to put you up, there's nowhere to play, there's nowhere to, have an art show, there's nowhere to do nothing. So that's always been New York to me. But nevertheless, it's not that far from Philadelphia. So I always felt like, geez, it's a shame that New York is just so impossible to actually like have a good show in or whatever, because if it was, it's only 2-hour drive. Like it's pretty easy to get in the van and haul up to New York, you know what I mean? And, but there's no reason to do it, so I'd always try to like get these little shows in New York or something, and just think, well, geez, maybe that one time we'll meet the one person who's really like actually knows about what's cool in New York or something. And my experience has been there is no such thing, so it's a waste of time. But anyways, I did, by the way, play one cool show in New York ever. I did have one. The Northern Liberties played a show one time with our friends Shellshag and this band This Bike is a Pipe Bomb, they were called. And it was actually a house show in New York, and it was a cool show, but it's a total outlier. And the place that hosted the show, I think, did shows for like 1 week and got shut down. And somebody with some money or something had this house, and that ended very quickly. But anyways, September 11th, 2001. Some of you may remember that date if you're old enough. I don't know if younger people know what 9/11 is or not. I never want to assume people know things, and then you meet somebody that's 20 and they're like, what the heck is 9/11? I never heard. So anyway, on September 11th, 2001, in the morning, early in the morning, some terrorists, religious zealot sort of terrorists that were motivated by political stuff that was going on. The United States had been bombing, the carpet bombing, sort of the quote-unquote Middle East for a long time, and there's all these tensions, and then the socio-political religious stuff gets wrapped up in it. So there's these religious zealots, and they have kind of a cult leader guy, and some members of their religious cult or sect or whatever you want to call it hijacked these airplanes and flew them into these buildings in New York that they called them the World Trade Center. So they were these gigantic, like, monument, like on the skyline. They'd be the main thing in the skyline, and blew them up, and about 2,000 people died, and it was this big historic event, so September 11th, 2001, September 10th, 2001, this band that I played in, Eulogy, which was like an artsy punk band, sort of whatever, a lot of different influences going on in it. Not easy to pigeonhole the sound. So playing a place like New York particularly, it's just like impossible to find anywhere to play and whatever. But we got this show somehow. I don't remember how I set it up, but we got this show at this place called the Continental Club. And the Continental Club was kind of like the only place in New York that an unknown band could get a show by just like mailing a demo tape. I think that was when I was still sending tapes, and you'd send like a tape with your phone number on it, I mailed him a tape, and we got this show, and it was always these shows where it was like a random bunch of bands on like a Tuesday night or something, you know what I mean? So I can't remember what day of the week September 11th was. I believe it might have been a Tuesday morning, that was September 11th, might have been a Tuesday. Because I think it was supposed to be a shock. Part of the sneak attack thing of the terrorists was that it was like, oh, it's in the middle of the week and it's going to disrupt. I think they tried to pick a day that would be disruptive or something. Anyways, so we got the show at Continental, and we drove up there in this little van that I had at the time on September 10th to play this show. And the show was... I don't remember really what the other bands were, but because it was New York and because it was the Continental Club, like matinee night or whatever the heck it was, none of the people that came to see any of the bands would stay to see any of the other bands, because it's this New York like weird capitalist competitive thing or something where everybody's like, we're going to get famous because it's New York and we're all here to get famous, and it's like this nonsense mentality, you know what I mean? Especially playing the show where there's like 10 people in the audience in the first place, So every band would be like, we got to get our friends to come out to prove that we have an audience, and we're going to build an audience and become famous. So all the other bands, in the early, by the way, of course we get to be the quote unquote headliner. We get put on last, and, early in the night, there's 25 people there, and the first band plays, and then their 6 friends leave with them, and then the second band plays, and their 8 friends leave with them. So by the time we played, there was one person in the audience. There was one drunk straggler that remained, and then there was the bartender and the guy running the sound. And I remember it was funny, too, because... everything's a scam in New York. Everything's some kind of shakedown, because everybody's like, well, you think you're going to get famous, so we'll fleece you somehow. Like these scam emails they send to artists, like, want to be an artist? Just send $100 and we'll help you get a show, and we're going to exhibit your work in London. Just send us $100 and we'll start setting it up. And probably there's some poor artists that fall for this stuff, you know what I mean? So anyways, they had something, and I'm glad I did this in retrospect, although it's kind of an obnoxious New York thing to do it in the first place. But they said, look, if you pay us, I think it was $10. If you pay us $10, we'll put a cassette tape in the deck on the soundboard, and we'll make a soundboard recording of your set. So you can have a demo recorded in New York City live. Like whatever. So I was like, you know what? I mean, we drove all the way up here. There's literally 3 people that are going to see us play. I think there was 3 people in the band at that point, maybe 4. I can't remember. We were always eclectic how many people we'd have in the band, but I was like, I might as well get a recording of the thing, even though it sucks to pay $10 on top of the $35 of gas, and we're not going to get paid anything for the show, and whatever. But I was like, you know what? I'll pay the $10 just to get the tape, and I'm really glad I did. Because it's kind of cool to have that recording, because we played until the cutoff point for music which was I think 2 a.m. So they cut us off at that point, and there's the one drunk guy, and we finished our set, and so I actually have this tape of our performance, and because it was 1 to 2 a.m., it technically is live in New York City, September 11th, 2001. So I always thought that was a trip, like, even though that was such a just typical New York show where it was like, oh, we played to an empty room at 1 to 2 in the morning for like no reason, and somebody's doing a shakedown being like, pay $10 to like get a copy of your own music, in New York, I heart New York. So I'm glad we did that, and it's neat to have that recording. But there's 2 trippy things about that show. First of all, I clearly remember when we were driving into New York, and we see the glittering heavenly skyline of New York City, just like something out of a dream, at night, driving over that bridge. And I remember my bandmate looking out the window of the van, and he says to me, dude, look at those buildings. Those buildings will stand for 1,000 years. And I says to him, no way will those buildings stand for 1,000 years. And I remember all this because it was so creepy afterwards. Like this memory came back to me the next morning, and I was like, oh God, that's so like chilling, So I says to him, no way. They're not going to stand for 1,000 years. 1,000 years isn't a long amount of time, like geologically. But as far as this nonsense that humans are doing with the Industrial Revolution, where we're excavating all the innards of the earth and building these crazy structures and stuff, I was like, I don't think that those buildings will fall within our lifetime, but they might. I mean, it's totally plausible, because my thing was nuclear war. I was like, it's only a matter of time until there's a full-scale nuclear war. It's inevitable. We've got the nukes. Everybody's got them. Right now, like today, September 10th, 2001, there's not a big nuclear standoff. But how long do you think that unstable peace is going to last? 30 years? 60 years? 150 years? 200 years? 400 years? 800 years? 900 years? I mean, in 1,000 years, you don't think anybody's going to nuke New York City? You got to be kidding me. You know what I mean? That was my thing. That was even before climate change was so talked about. But now you think about, flooding and... Anyways, I was just certain that these buildings would not stand for 1,000 years. And I gave it, 200 years. I was like, within 200 years or something, like, maybe there will be a few straggler buildings, but a lot of these buildings will be, for one reason or the other, knocked down. And it was the next morning, the main buildings in that skyline got smashed by these airplanes. And I remember that too, because a friend of ours, Camille, in New York, actually did offer to put us up that night, which is really unusual because property values in New York and everybody's apartment is like the size of a shoe closet. But she offered to put us up, and she lived nearby the World Trade Center, and we were like, nah, you know what? It is getting kind of late. We should make our way back to Philly. And it was that next morning, my girlfriend woke me up, I think, and the TV was on, and she was, oh my God, this airplane just hit the World Trade Center, and we thought it was an accident, and then the second plane hit, and the whole story, you know what I mean? But the second crazy thing about that show was that a couple years later, I don't remember when it was, but Northern Liberties went up. My band Northern Liberties went up to New York to play at that same shitty Continental Club, and similar show, you know what I mean? It was like we got put on last. There was probably 3 people there because I think we brought 2 of our friends. But the crazy thing was that the bartender was the same bartender at the show that Eulogy played September 10th, and I would never have known that except that she told me. She was like, "Oh my God, I remember that because just because." She was like, "I remember that band just because it was the last band that played on the last night before September 11th happened." And she's like, "You know, the next day everything's covered in like catastrophic dust and everything else like that." And she's like, "I just remember thinking this band sucks so bad and I'm so tired and I just want to go home." And it kept me out a little bit later. And then the next morning I forget when it was, 8 in the morning or 9 in the morning or something, the planes hit the World Trade Center and everything. So that's my one of my New York City show stories. I have others. I have one that involves a show that Northern Liberties played at a strip club it involves there was a shooting, and I wonder if I should tell that or if it gets too long-winded. Maybe I'll tell one show story a week and I'll keep everybody waiting. And this week will just be the September 11th show. And we'll see the Cube's lady friend. We probably already did, so I'm going to edit that in. And we should say hi to Ferdy. I walked her in the rain, and she was very finicky about walking in the rain, and then she came in and got really excited. Mandy came home early because of the rain. She wasn't even going to be home today, but she is. And maybe we should just go say hi to them. And we'll end our vlog. I hope that you all like all one-shot, non-edit vlog. It's really plenty long, you know. This is our little smush-faced dog, Ferdy. She's sleeping, and she's still a little bit wet. Hi, Ferdy. Oh, she's like, "I'm wet. Why am I wet?" Oh, you're wet because you walked in the rain.